Hey everybody, it's Greg again. It's another edition of Unbreakable the podcast. It is Friday, TGIF, June 6th, D-Day. I want to say hello to all the vets out there, thinking of my dad and D-Day, all the vets who served, whether they took part in that Normandy invasion or not. But what a day, huh? I'll tell you what, if you watch the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks, the movie that was directed by Steven Spielberg, they say that's so realistic to what D-Day was really like. Landing on the beaches of Normandy and just even some of the vets who participated in that landing said it was so realistic, to what it was really like. And there aren't that many vets left who were actually on the beaches, who stormed the beaches. So we have to salute each and every one up there for their bravery and courage. So today I thought we would do a little Remember When. I've been doing this segment for a little while now, talking about three of my favorite decades since I've been alive: the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. So I thought today we would touch a little bit on each. And let's talk about the 60s first. I'm doing this because a lot of people who lived through that era, as I did, and this may be a chance for you to reminisce a little bit, think back to the good old days, and discussion points. Maybe talk about what we talked about to friends, family. And for those of you who did not have the chance, weren't lucky enough to live through that time, this may be a little learning program, right? What life was like back in the good days. Okay, so the 60s. I thought what we talk about today for the 60s are TV comedy shows. And you know why? The 60s were a very turbulent decade, a very, very turbulent era to live through, I mean, think about it. Early in the 60s, we had the Kennedy assassination, and that was really part of the whole nation. I vaguely remember it. I do remember that day. I was only a little toddler, a little tyke, but I do remember. And then, we had the civil rights movement. We had the Vietnam War late in the 60s into the 70s. All kinds of protests. There was just a lot of turmoil going on during that decade. And so the country we needed some comedy. We needed to laugh. We needed to forget about the bad times, the war, whatever, and just sit back every night and watch comedy on TV. So I just wanted to throw out a few comedy shows that we really liked back in the 60s. One was, of course, the Beverly Hillbillies, which I think is the top comedy show of the 60s, with Jed Clampett, eat doggies, and Ellie Mae and Granny Clampett, and Jethro Bodine, that dopey nephew. And it was just a lot of fun. It was about these hillbillies that struck oil back in Arkansas, and they moved to LA, to Beverly Hills, because they had a lot of money, which at the time, like nowadays, it wouldn't be considered that much, I guess. But back in the day, back in the 60s, they were billionaires. So, but it was funny, they played a lot about the swimming pool they called the cement pond, and things like that, So that was really funny. CBS, which the Beverly Hillbillies were on CBS, that had like a rural theme all through the 60s because they had Petticoat Junction, Green Acres. Green Acres is the place to be. Oh, lilies are that for me. And I know the words. Isn't that pathetic? Payco Junction. Yeah, all those shows on CBS. Great shows. I mean, some other shows, Comedy Get Smart, Maxwell Smart, Don Adams. You had, you had, I'm John would like you. Uh, oh my God, a senior moment. Anyway, there was a lot of comedy back in the 60s. Think okay. There was all kinds of shows. I mean, the first time, think about it, my friends, the first time I ever saw color TV was in the 60s. It was the Wonderful World of Disney. I think that was the first program I ever saw in color. Can you imagine? And back then it was a big deal because I spent like the first maybe 9 years of my life watching black and white TV. And to see color TV in around 65, 66 was really like earth shattering to us. Uh, Wonderful World Disney, to see all the colors, but we were like, ooh, ooh. And then we got to watch the first Super Bowl. The first Super Bowl was Green Bay Packers against Kansas City Chiefs. That was pretty cool to see that in color. And it was just a life-changing experience back then. Color TV. Who would have thunk it, huh? There were a lot of doctor shows too. Dr. Kildare with Richard Chamberlain, Ben Casey, Ben Casey, Ben Casey, Ben Casey. That was the older guy, his mentor. Ben Casey was a brain surgeon, and Sam Jaffe had that wild hair. And lament, Ben Casey, Ben Casey, Ben Casey. What have you done now? Yeah. So, Medical Center with Chad Everett, and there were all kinds of cool programs back then. I used to watch a lot. Combat. Remember Combat with Vic Morrow? That was a World War II drama. And I always loved Vic Morrow's gun. He had a machine gun. It was like a Tommy gun. And so I used to watch Combat a lot. A lot of Westerns, too. Oh, my God. 60s were Westerns. Bonanza, Gunsmoke, The High Chaparral, The Wild Wild West, The Virginian, right? All these great Westerns. So if you weren't watching the comedies like the Beverly Hillbillies, you had a night where you had all Westerns. Like Sunday night, I'm trying to remember, NBC, Wide World Disney. Oh, first was Wild Kingdom, Marlon Perkins and Jim Fallon. Remember those guys? Marlon Perkins would be in the studio saying, and I'm here in the studio while Jim is out in the jungle wrestling with the alligator and with the crocodiles. And Jim Fowler. And so that led off the programming. Then came Disney, and then Bonanza, and what another TV? So we needed that kind of entertainment back in the 60s to get away from our other problems. So the 70s. You know what I was thinking of the other day? The 70s were a great time. Now that we're coming in summertime, it's starting to get hot and muggy here in Pennsylvania. I was thinking about all the picnics and barbecues we had when I was a kid growing up. And our church used to have a church picnic every year that we would really look forward to. I guess your church still does, right? Have a church picnic every summer. And we would have, they would have barbecue chicken out there, and they'd have corn on the cob, and maybe some seafood, lobster, crabs. And I always thought it was soda too. What? I don't know why. I don't drink soda now because of the kidneys. I'm still having kidney stone problems. I'll tell you about that some other time. But, they would bring out the birch beer. Remember birch beer? Oh, it tasted kind of like root beer, but it was a little different. Birch beer reminded me of summertime. And then the cream soda. Remember cream soda? Oh God. You had the two different kinds. Cream soda was the one was like white, like clear, like 7 Up, and then the other cream soda that you could get was like a red color, cherry color. Yeah. And it was cream soda. It tasted so good. Oh. And then you had your orange crush, and then you had your grape soda. Oh my God. Those, of course, you had your Coke and Dr. Pepper, not so much Dr. Pepper back in the day, but Pepsi and stuff like that. Those sodas just remind you of summertime, like we're coming into now. Uh, what else was 70s? Um, oh, you know what I wanted to talk about too? A lot of 80s stuff, a lot of 80s stuff. 80s, remember Jelly Belly, jelly beans in the 80s? That was Reagan. If you remember Ronald Reagan, who was president throughout most of the 80s, he loved Jelly Belly jelly beans. Yeah. No other brand, just Jelly Belly. And he was so obsessed with these, he had a jar on his desk in the Oval Office. But what I read about was there was a standing order in the White House that there had to be 72 bags, 1 pound bags of Jelly Belly jelly beans. Say that 10 times, but Jelly Belly jelly beans had to be 72 bags at Reagan's beck and call. Different flavors, I guess. Why 72? I don't know. But anyway, uh, and back in the day, the people who made Jelly Belly actually came up with a new flavor just for Reagan. They already had the very cherry. Ooh, that must be good. And they already had coconut. I hate coconut. I hate anything coconut. Coconut candy, coconut pie, coconut. Oh, oh. And so red, white, and they thought they wanted to make a blue Jelly Belly, so to be like patriotic for Reagan. So they concocted a new jelly bean called blueberry jelly bean just for Ronald Reagan. See what you learn on this show. See what you don't get when you don't tune in. Um, the Jelly Belly was popular. I'll tell you what else was popular too. We had your female singers. I think that's when female singers really came into the room. I mean, in the 70s, yes, you had Linda Ronstadt, who was terrific, just great. Olivia Newton-John, of course, Helen Reddy, Anne Murray. You had a lot of great female singers, but I think the 80s really, really brought it to be. I mean, you had Tina Turner. Tina Turner came. Aretha Franklin was better than ever. You know, I mean, Madonna, Whitney Houston, who was called the Voice. Yeah, uh, uh, late 70s, 80s. That's when you started seeing the female singers coming in, and because before that, it just seemed like there was a majority of male singers. There wasn't that many female bands. And then in the 80s, of course, you had the Go-Go's with my personal friend, Belinda Carlisle. I'll tell you about that sometimes, me and Belinda. And then you had the Bangles. Ready? Just another manic Monday, walk like an Egyptian. And Bananarama. And so you started getting more female groups coming out in the 80s, along with female solo singers in the 80s. There was a commercial in the 80s for Wendy's still around. Wendy's hamburgers. Where's the beef? Clara Peller herself. Clara Peller was this little old lady in her 80s, She was a manicurist, actually. And on the Wendy's commercial set, they needed a manicurist in a bad way. Clara Peller happened to be the manicurist that they hired. And she came in to do the job. Well, they were so impressed with her feistiness and her accent and just the way she talked. She was very feisty. Where's the beef? Where's the beef? That they hired her. Yeah, can you imagine that? You're going into the job, thinking you're going to be hired as to file down some fingernails there, and they hired you to be an actress. Now, because little known to anybody else, Clara Peller suffered from emphysema. So she couldn't do like long lines of dialogue. So they kept it very, very short to the point with her. And they came up with that campaign, Wendy's, which was kind of a new fast food restaurant back then. You had your McDonald's, you had your Burger King, you had everybody remember Roy Rogers? We had a Roy Rogers here in town. I remember chicken. In fact, Roy Rogers was the first fast food restaurant I ever experienced. Even before McDonald's, and McDonald's was around before. Because we had a Roy Rogers in town and we liked their chicken. So Wendy's was kind of new in the 80s. So they hired Clara Peller to do their campaign. And what the commercial was, three little old ladies in another burger joint, something called Bun King or Big Buns. And and they get this burger with these giant buns, right? But very little meat, very little beef, with very little hamburger. And so while the other two little old ladies are inspecting the buns, Clara Peller is looking at the microscopic hamburger and yelling out, "Where's the beef? Where's the beef?" Well, that caught him. Everybody loved that. By the way, that was 1984. 1984. Well, everybody loved that commercial. And pretty soon it became her catchphrase and it became a trademark of Wendy's. And it was used all around the country. People were saying to each other, "Nice day today. You think we'll get any rain? Where's the beef?" Yeah, I don't know. But they were using it. Where's the beef? And so they said, the Wendy's guy said, their shares zoomed way up since they started that advertisement campaign. And Clara Peller was their main actress, straight through the roof. In fact, he was quoted as saying, "This lady, Clara Peller, did more for our company in 5.5 weeks than we did in the past 14.5 years since Wendy's existed." That's how much power she had, Well, like anything else, it faded away as time. When they cut the commercials, she was so popular that right after they took her "Where's the Beef" commercials off, stock in Wendy's went way down. For like a year. It took like a year or 2 years until they were stabilized again. And then they came on with the campaign of Dave Thomas. Remember Dave Thomas? He actually owned the company. And he talked about his granddaughter and stuff being the Wendy of Wendy's. But Clara Peller, then her contract was over with Wendy's, and she hawked, if you want to use that word, hawked Prego spaghetti sauce. And it just didn't catch on like the where it's supposed to be, It just didn't. Well, God bless her soul. 1988, Clara Peller passed away. And so it wasn't that long after her heyday of Where's the Beef that she went to that big hamburger joint in the sky. So so that was very 80-ish though, very 80-ish. Because all through 84 and stuff, middle 80s, Clara Peller was an icon. In fact, even now, when you use the term "where's the beef," I don't know why you would, because who says that? Where's the beef? I mean, like, let's face it. Are you going to go to your next barbecue and go to the guy, whoever's cooking the hamburgers on the grill? Or are you going to go to him and say, "Where's the beef? Where's the beef?" No, you're not going to do that. What the hell? So, but Clara Peller was an icon. Back in the day, I was thinking, what else to talk to? Is that it? Yeah, I guess that's it. What the heck? Hey, before I leave, I gotta say about those Sixers, right? Not Sixers. Well, who cares about that? The Phillies. What the hell's going on with those guys? Huh? They lose 2 out of 3 in Toronto. First game of the series, they score 6 runs in the first inning. They cruise. They win that game. Last 2 games of the series, they scored 2 freaking runs. 2. I don't know. I think, to me, something needs to change. Because if you remember, this was the time of the year last year when the team started to slide. Remember, the Phillies had a great first section of the season where they jumped out in the first place. Never looked back. But once they went to London, England, they came back and then they started losing. Ranger Suarez got hurt, and that didn't help. And they started losing. They hung on at the end and won the division, but they weren't the same team as they were early in the season, back in the spring. And the same thing's happening again. You run the same team out, chances are you're going to get the same results, right? Well, to me, I don't know. Maybe they need a trade. Maybe they need to infuse the roster with some younger talent, with some energy, some hunger. Maybe the guys they have up now are just too laid back and just too, all right, we'll pick it up. We'll start playing good ball when we need to. Ho hum. I don't know. They got this Justin Crawford kid, first round draft pick, center fielder, dead in Lehigh Valley. He's hitting 349. How much more can he do to you? And center field is a black hole for the Phillies. It's constantly changing between Brandon Marsh, who's just an average player, and Johan Rojas. He has his moments, but then he slides back down again. Maybe it would behoove the Phillies to bring up Crawford. Maybe it would be that shot in the arm that they need. Mick Abel, the pitcher, certainly has given them 2 great outings in a row. Andrew Painter, their other prospect pitcher, won't be ready until July. And then their other top prospect is a shortstop third baseman named Aiden Miller, who's hitting very well too. So is it possible that they need to bring some of these guys up to sort of shake things up a little bit? Do they need to make a few trades? Now, here's what I don't get, my friends. The weak part of the Phillies, I think everyone would agree with this, is the bullpen, especially after Jose Alvarado went down. Well, we can't say he went down. He's not playing because he got caught using PEDs and 80-game suspension, including the playoffs. So Phillies are going to need to improve their bullpen sooner or later. So here you go. The bullpen is the weak link of the Phillies team. And yet, what are they doing tonight? They're having what they call a bullpen game. They're out in Pittsburgh to play the Buccos out there. Pittsburgh is a horrible team, but don't underestimate the Pirates. Why? Because the Phillies swept the Pirates last month. Pirates may be have a little price to pay there, a little reckoning. So plus, Phillies are doing a bullpen game tonight. The vaunted Joe Ross is starting, and so that's certainly a losable game. And then they have to face Paul Skeens again on Sunday. And as we know, Paul Skeens pitched a great game against the Phillies last month in Philadelphia. He took the loss because Mick Abel outpitched him. So Paul Skeens again. Now, to me, it's very possible the Pirates could win this series. So the Phillies better be at the top of their game. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, right before the pandemic, we went to Pittsburgh. First time out there, ever. Not only did we go to see a ball game, first time ever in Pittsburgh. And I was really impressed. I think it's a nice little city. And very clean, people were friendly. And we saw the Phillies play the Buccos a Sunday afternoon game there. Very nice stadium. PNC Park, very beautiful stadium. You've got over the center field fence, you've got probably the best atmosphere, scenery in all baseball, because you got the river in back there, the Monongahela or Ohio or Allegheny, whatever. Those three rivers converge right there. You got the Roberto Clemente Bridge crossing the river into downtown Pittsburgh, where you've got these skyscrapers there on the other side. It really is a picturesque view. And so I never forget that baseball excursion out to Pittsburgh. It's not a bad trip. If you drive out about 6 hours, we left we left that Saturday morning. We got there up to 6 in the morning. We got out there before noon, right in time for lunch. And it's not a bad drive. It's not bad. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of Phillies fans out there. I hope the boys bring it back. I really do. I hope they win the series, because they're coming back home on Monday, and they got the Chicago Cubs coming in. Now, the Cubs are not going to be easy. The Cubs lead the NL Central Division, and they can hit. These Cubbies can hit. So it's not going to be an easy series. And then next weekend, the Blue Jays, who we just lost to up in Toronto, are coming down here for the weekend. So it's not an easy go for the Phillies, and they need to step it up here, because the Stinging Rotten Mets are still ahead of them in first place. But Phillies need to step it up, So I don't know what they're going to do, but I think they need something. That's just my opinion. Otherwise, I got the Birds gear today, as you can see. Can't wait for the Birds to begin their schedule, beat the rotten, stinking Dallas Cowboys. And before I go, in case you've been living under a rock, everybody, let me come closer. For those who don't know, the Eagles are the Super Bowl this year. The Eagles are world champions of football. Not the Giants. Not even the Kansas City Chiefs. The Eagles are the Super Bowl champs. So I can't wait. It's, they defend their title. It's not going to be easy. They have a tougher schedule. They got the bullseye on their back because they are the champs. But it should be a lot of fun. So, a lot to look forward to. Meanwhile, I will be back again. Maybe tomorrow. We'll talk more crap. Yeah, I gotta go in again for another kidney stone surgery. When will it end? I think of this as a movie franchise. Greg versus the Kidney Stones, Part 3, coming to your local theater soon. The epic journal, the epic journey continues. Blah, 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 blah. I met a doctor recently down at Penn. I'll tell you what, he looks exactly like Ben Davis. Ben Davis, former Major League player who broadcast the Phillies games, and sort of a good looking guy from what the females tell me. This new doctor looks just like Ben Davis. He's a doppelganger of Ben Davis. Okay. So that's who's going to be operating on me soon. Ben Davis. Oops. Yes. Anyway, I got to do this one more procedure. This will be the third, and hopefully they'll get all the kidney stones out of me. I think they're going to use a Hoover vacuum, and they're going to suck everything. So we can correctly say that this operation is truly going to suck. I'm just saying it's true. All right, everybody. Well, I'll be back. Who knows when, but I'll be back. And we'll talk some more crap and we'll have some more fun. And I'll be back again with another edition of Remember When. And we'll just get lost in the past. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Peace and love. Have a great weekend. Stay cool. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.